mommy, community in action. But oh my, let us down to that. Look, daddy, there's a book for me too. But oh my, let us down to that. Creative, affirming, and culture for me too. Look, granny, and let us down to that. Look, granny, and let us down to that. Look, granny, and let us down to that. Learning and exploring my history, you see. Look, mommy, and let us down to that. We confident, we practice and develop fluency. Look, daddy, and let us down to that. Families, they bond and they representing me. Look, granny, and let us down to that. Look, auntie, and let us down to that. Nice, I see, let us down to that.
So reliable, culturally relevant. Sit back and listen to the wisdom while we represent. So reliable, culturally relevant. Readers and leaders, they hold it down where they have to sit. So reliable, culturally relevant. Sit back and listen to the wisdom while you represent. So reliable, culturally relevant. Readers and leaders, they hold it down, yeah, they have to sit.
Look, mommy, community in action. Well, oh my, let us down to that. Look, daddy, there's a book for me too. Well, oh my, let us down to that. Creative, affirming, culture for me too. Look, granny, let us down to that.
All right. As always, we are forever loving the sound of that. Rodney, we've come a long way, right? From the first day of school shutdowns to getting an intro to where we are now with this fall season of the virtual village. It's been a great ride, right?
8, almost 9 months.
Wow. Okay, I think we deserve a virtual.
High 5, a high 10. If I could put my feet up, we get a high 20.
Right. All of that on the Black Hand side.
There you
right?
go. Yeah,
it's definitely been great, and the people we have met along the way, the village that has been built as a result of this. I'm just really proud of it, and really, again, we've met wonderful adults, wonderful children, families. What more could we have possibly asked for? And I guess we're doing this reminiscing because if people don't know right now, this is the last week of our fall season. It's not the last of the virtual village. We'll have some pop-up shows and some other things coming from our young people. And then Rodney and I will come back. But right now for the fall season, we're going on hiatus. From this format that you all have gotten to know. So what is on your mind, Rodney? What's going on? What's on that big brain of you? Oh, wait. We got a pumpkin here. We have Shania here telling us good evening. That greeting always takes the energy level up 10 notches. So glad to see you here, baby girl. And as I was saying, yes, Rodney, in that big historic mind of yours, what is going on? What are you thinking about?
Well, it's funny, even as you were just talking about where we are and being 9 months in. And so we started off with a shutdown, and I sure hope we're not headed back for another shutdown. But I don't know. I mean, what's on my mind is always our health first. I think it's important that we take time, and one of the things I just love about is I was listening to this theme song, clever communities in action. So I think we have to continue to be clever and smart about what we're doing. And at the end of the day, we need to be in action. So, and I think part of that is, wellness check. We need to just, I want to make sure that folks out there, Miss Marva, who just said good evening, how you doing, Miss Marva?
Yeah, Miss Marva.
Yeah, drop us a line. Tell us how we're doing. Shania, drop us a line. How are you doing? How are folks doing in the midst of what we've been going through? We need to check in on folks. Even she probably didn't like me talking about it, but my younger daughter, she works in the physical therapy industry, and she got sent home early just because she was having an allergic reaction to something. But by the time she got to the office, I guess her eyes must have been swelling a little bit. But they sent her home. They sent her home for her wellness, and they sent her home for the wellness of patients that she normally would be, catering to or providing support to. So I think just making sure that our mental health is well, our emotional health is well. That we tell the students all the time that they need to take some breaks sometimes. And I think, as we've talked about before, likewise for the adults. So
Yeah.
You know, it might be good as we work on this last night of the fall season to just do a check-in with the village and make sure that everybody is all right.
I agree. That's definitely a great idea. And good evening to Miss Amanda over there at the Mighty Monroe Elementary School. We are so glad to have our villagers check in. So as we go out on through the night, because you guys make sure you stick around, we really want to get in depth with this wellness check-in. If you know, at any point, drop a line and tell us how you are feeling, because we have not experienced this before. This year brought on something that no one who is alive right now has ever experienced before, as far as it being a pandemic and as far as it being school shutdowns and just all of the things that we have changed with society, changing how we can interact with people we love, how we can interact at places that we're used to going to, where we work, where we go to school, where we worship, where we shop, where we convene with our girlfriends, our friends, our loved ones on the weekends. You know, all of that has, or even just going to people's houses, you know, all of these things have changed, definitely with the schooling, you know, definitely with the schooling for children and, as you said, parents and the community. It's a lot. It's a lot. So we are a virtual village and we talk about being a virtual village family. So to just reiterate what Rodney stated, we definitely want to know how you all are doing. So don't you guys go anywhere. You know, we got a whole show to put on, but we want to hear from you. So hold tight, okay? We got some good things coming. So right now, though, are y'all ready to get amped? Okay, because we're going to talk about how we feel, but we got a natural mood enhancer, spirit lifter, all of that stuff coming on. So let's hit it.
Greetings, virtual villagers. My name is Shania, and do you know what time it is? It's affirmation time! Time to remind ourselves how great we are. So everybody, repeat after me. I am smart. I have purpose. I am confident. I am valuable. My voice is worthy of being heard. I am an asset to my family, school, and community. I respect myself and I respect others. I am beautifully made inside and out. I love my beautiful hair and I love my beautiful brown skin. I am more than enough. Great job, virtual villagers. Can I get a virtual high five? Great job. And always remember how fantastic you are.
Greetings, virtual villagers. I'm Akai, and today's quote is by Malcolm X. The ability to read awoke inside me some long dormant craving to be mentally alive.
Since the beginning of the pandemic, Clever Communities in Action and our community partners have taken action to motivate and inspire children and families online. From reading culturally affirming literature, teaching foundational literacy lessons, and creating jobs for youth, our virtual village continues to grow. To be part of our virtual village, donate or learn how we are keeping literacy alive, visit clevercommunities.org.
Good morning, students!
Professor Ramona and I are going to be working on fractions today.
Encuentra el país.
Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him.
Excuse me.
Ay, de nuevo. Teachers are doing whatever it takes to connect with their students.
202.
And Cox is too, by connecting over 140,000 eligible students in need with low-cost internet.
Who wants to see it again?
With the Connect to Compete program from Cox.
All right. Well, you know how that goes. Shania always gets us so spirited. I feel like I'm at a pep rally. And it's all about self-love and empowerment. Okay. So that is great. I love my hair and I love my beautiful brown skin. My voice is worthy of being heard. I am more than enough. So we hope that everybody is repeating that mantra and especially playing it for the babies. We had another family member to check in. We have Miss Letitia. How are you doing, sis? Great evening to you. So glad to see you and all of our villagers here. So, we'll start the evening off. We got to start it off with a reading. And, then we're going to go into our community connection night. So this is when we get into the wellness check, when we get into what's going on with the community. But since it was the last night of community connection and tomorrow's the last night of season 3, Rodney and I just wanted to come up here like old time state and just be up here and, be with the Virtual Village family. So Rodney, I feel like you've taken up the slack with the readings, a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and do a reading tonight. But you guys know my philosophy is that variety is the spice of life. I like choices. So I have 2 books here, and I'm going to just read snippets because they are rather long, but I'll read a portion of the book. So I want to give everybody options, okay? So these are also books that we donate to the schools or the students, all right? So these are 2 awesome books. So the first one that I have here is about Sister Fannie Lou Hamer, and it's called Voice of Freedom, Fannie Lou Hamer. And then the other one, so that's option A. That's option A, okay? Because I need you guys to tell me whether you want me to read A or B. And then the next one is The Teacher's March, how Selma's teachers changed history, okay? So that's B. So I'm going to hold them up again, and I need virtual villagers. I need you, hard choices, right?
Yeah, that's not fair. That's not fair.
So option A is Sister Fannie, Voice of Freedom. All right, that's A. And option B is The Teacher's March, how Selma teachers changed history. So we have 1 B vote for Miss Tiffany. I'm showing you guys again. A, Sister Fannie Lou Hamer. B, The Teacher's March. Drum roll. I need y'all to press A or we got a tie. Oh, we have a tie. Somebody needs to break the tie. A, Fannie Lou Hamer. B, The Teacher's March. Come on, villagers. Which one do you want? A or B? Right now we have a tie. If we don't get the tie broken, I'm going to ask my co-host to break the tie. We got, Victor says, hi, Victor. Oh my God, Victor is like the source of so much laughter. So now we're back at a tie. We have equal numbers of A and equal numbers of B. So what shall we do? Is anybody going to jump in and break the tie? I'm going to do a 10 count. If not, it's on you. It's on you.
Is both an option?
Huh?
Is both an option?
Well, don't we want to community connect?
Yeah, but maybe we could do one book early and 1 book later.
Okay, well, it's our show, so it's a virtual village show. So if that's what we want to do, we can do it. But I still want to see. I'm going to go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. It's funny looking at it. 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so we're still at a tie. So at least whichever one goes first. Mr. Jordan, is it Sister Fannie Lou Hamer or The Teacher's March?
You got another.
We got a B.
You got another B for me.
Oh, what's up, Diego? How are you? Wow, that's spam right there. How are you doing? So glad to see you. Hope you and the little ones are doing well. So yes, well, they're big ones now. So yes, we got B. B. Yeah, B.
Right.
It is.
There you go.
All right. It's the Teacher's March. The villagers have spoken. It is the Teacher's March. So I am going to read how Selma's teachers changed history. You know what, Jordan? I like it when you stay up here. Remember how you would have me to stay with you? So we're going to have you stay and catch all your facial expressions.
Okay. I'll do my best to.
We'll see how long that lasts. So we appreciate the votes, family, and I am going to kick this one off. So you see the young people here in the classroom. All right. Reverend F.D. Reese taught science at R.B. Hudson High School, but his favorite subject was freedom. He believed that everyone was a first-class citizen, just like the Constitution stated. To be treated as less than equal, that just wasn't right. So his favorite subject was what? Freedom. With fire in his eyes, Reverend Reese led marchers to the courthouse to register to vote. Troublemakers. That's what the police called the marchers. Reverend Reese knew that was a lie. The marchers just wanted to vote like everybody else. But in Selma, Alabama, segregation kept Black people and white people apart, and billy clubs kept Black people from voting. Sheriff Clark, I'm laughing at Letitia's. Stop distracting me. Sheriff Clark's cheeks boiled red whenever he spotted Reverend Reese and the marchers. His deputies blocked the marble steps of the courthouse. The sheriff swung his club at the Reverend like he was a baseball, and that kept most people away. Even if they made it into the courthouse, the Reverend knew what would happen. You must take a voting test, a test impossible to pass. How many drops of water are in the Alabama River? How could anyone answer a question like that? Reverend Reese pulled his trench coat over his bruises and kept on marching and talking about freedom. He had to find a way to make their voices heard. He needed a triumphant idea. So I'm the person who stops because I might forget it. I just want to emphasize as we go through this story that this is domestic terrorism and that people are alive today who live through state-sanctioned domestic terrorism, and it has never been addressed. And when we talk about doing wellness checks, what runs rampantly through our community are people who have been traumatized and have not been afforded the ability to have any kind of therapy, to thoroughly speak about this, to have it acknowledged or addressed for what it actually was. And in addition to that, there definitely has been no type of compensation for that. So as we go through this story, just keep that in mind. Domestic terrorism, all right, is nothing cute or funny about it. Walking through the school one day, the Reverend found his idea in every classroom. What if the teachers marched? Not just one teacher like him, but hundreds of teachers, leaders. That's what people called the teachers. The teachers were the somebodies of the community. College educated, shiny leather shoes, suits, and Sunday brooches 7 days a week. No group like that had marched for freedom before. If the teachers marched, people would notice and change would come. Shout out to all of our current teachers, and you're standing on the backs of giants, some master teachers who we need to talk about more along the way. But shout out to all our teachers today and how much you matter. And again, think about what these teachers were having to teach through the inequities, the domestic terrorism. And domestic terrorism is, I don't care what you say, it's scary. You know, and it's a time for you to be brave and to stand up for yourselves and fight. But the thing that people, I don't think, ever put on and really think about and wear is the fact that it was scary. It was scary as all get out because it's a family show. So I'll say it like that, but it was scary. This was life at that. There's no recourse, no type of protection out here. Dear beautiful Black people, you are on your own, okay? And people have guns, they have billy clubs, they have all of these things, and they use them and nothing happens to them. That's state-sanctioned terrorism, and your grandparents lived through it. And if they're alive right now, do a wellness check on them as well, all right? And think about how that runs down through our communities. Domestic terrorism, all right? Think about it. But in that summer of 1964, a judge declared marching and talking about voting rights against the law in Selma. Don't get involved in that mess, some people warned. It's too dangerous. And that stopped meetings and marches to the courthouse. How would Reverend Reese convince the teachers to march? He searched for a glorious opportunity. So we have brave ones in the midst of living in times like this who do what they think and what they feel is best to make things change. And we still have to be those change agents today. But I want us to think about history differently. Like, not just read pages, but wear it. Like, really feel it. Like, baptize your mind and your soul in the fact that this really, really happened. This is not fiction. And this is a palatable version of it in a children's book, okay? So we know not what it was like to actually live during that time, okay? So think about it. Really, really, like, dress yourself up in that. Just before Christmas, he huddled by the TV watching the great civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., talk about freedom. So in the 1960s, there are people who were born in the 1960s who are still young, getting around very well people, and they're having to talk about freedom. They're talking about, and we're still talking about it today. But I just need, as I carry you guys on this journey, I need y'all to feel it. I need you to feel it, okay? So let's see. The Reverend's face lit up like a Christmas tree. Who better than Dr. King to turn things around and help convince the teachers to march? That night, Reverend Reese wrote a letter to Dr. King inviting him to Selma. He signed it, "Yours for Better Citizens." Some people thought, there's no way Dr. King will come to Selma, but Dr. King said yes. And there were a lot of people in the places they live respectively who were doing great, courageous work, okay? And Dr. King just happened to be the person who was excelled and lifted up as like a face of the movement. And he was doing work, but we have to know that whatever city you were in, there were people doing work. Like right here, my co-host, he can run down the folks in the Hampton Roads area. Some preachers feared they'd be arrested if Dr. King spoke in their churches about voting rights. But not the pastor of Brown Chapel. He gave Reverend Reese permission to have Dr. King speak at his church. So it is not all rainbows and butterflies, and understand that the people who were initiating change were considered rebel rousers, not even just by white people, but by a lot of people in their own communities as well, because sometimes people can be complacent. Sometimes fear takes over people more so than the need of change. But let me stop running my mouth. I'm gonna go on with the story as best I can. When the day arrived, clouds hung so heavy, they covered the steeples of Brown Chapel. Reverend Reese worried that nobody would show up. The night before, a soldier home on leave for Christmas had thrown a smoke bomb near the church, hoping to scare Dr. King away. The bomb didn't scare anyone. 700 people squeezed into Brown Chapel waiting for Dr. King. So we've heard about the bombing at 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham that killed 4 precious little girls that took lives and forever changed the lives of their families and people who knew one in that whole church congregation. But bombs were happening everywhere. They were bombing Black churches, the place that is supposed to be sacred, but they were bombing Black churches, and people lived through knowing that if I assemble in this place, I could die tonight. But because I care about what's happening with me, my community, and people I have not met yet because they're not born, I'm here, I'm there. So 15-year-old Joyce Parrish sat in her usual row with her mother, Too Sweet. When Dr. King swung through the doors of Brown Chapel, Joyce and Too Sweet leapt to their feet and clapped. Dr. King said people shouldn't be afraid of being arrested. They should go to jail by the thousands to defend the right to vote. And he wasn't just talking about committed marchers like Reverend Reese. He meant everybody in Brown Chapel. These stories can, really sound like, yeah, this is triumphant. But remember, these people are here and they know they could die. They could die at any minute and if somebody throws a bomb and they die, nothing happens. Nothing's going to happen. At the next meeting, Reverend Reese spoke to the teachers filling the church pews. He told them about his triumphant idea. We're not just teachers in the classroom, but leaders in the community, he proclaimed. Shout out to the teachers. People are looking people are looking to us to give leadership. We are going to march. The teachers fidgeted as if they hadn't heard. Some sat still as statues. When times got this quiet, Reverend Reese always said, you can hear a rat walk on cotton. I believe it when I see it, grumbled a churchgoer. So they had a lot to contemplate, right? Because it's about really being brave, because you're thinking about, I know there's something that needs to be done, but I imagine these people were sitting there doing a cost risk analysis, a cost benefit analysis, thinking about, I have children who depend on me, or maybe I have parents who depend on me. I have a livelihood, or I just like being alive. Just a lot of things to think about as you forge through this. So as we think about what we do nowadays, we got to look back at it's risky out here. Livelihood and things like that still exist. People took the risk, but again, this was state-sanctioned terrorism that they were living through. So as they're sitting there quiet and fidgety, it's a lot of real things that they're having to think about. Teachers may be somebody's, and they taught school to thousands of kids, but when it came to marching, they didn't have the courage. That's what people whispered. Reverend Reese noticed that the teachers were afraid. He knew what they were thinking. If we march, we could get arrested. We could go to jail. We could lose our jobs. Teachers had to be sensible. The white superintendent of schools hired them because they had the good sense not to march. But if the teachers didn't march, nothing would change. The Reverend needed a guarantee from the teachers. Fast. He waved a sheet of paper in the air. If you will participate in the teachers' march, sign this list, he urged. Show up and show out. Reverend Reese explained that if both people taught school, then only one marched. That way, somebody could take care of the kids if the other parent went to jail. If both parents were teachers, only one needs to march, because some there to take care of the family if one goes to jail or get maimed or killed. So where did that leave Too Sweet? She thought she taught school, but she was also a mother, the only parent, period. There was Joyce's grandmother who cooked the food, but Too Sweet earned the money for it. The first teacher to sign the list was Coach Lawrence Huggins. He was tired of telling kids about the concept of freedom and justice for all, but not defending it for himself. Another teacher signed up and another, until more than 100 teachers had pledged to march. Before the meeting was over, Too Sweet stood up. She signed her name on the list. The march was set for January 22nd. When Joyce woke up that morning, her mother kept busy in the kitchen. Without saying a word, Too Sweet butter sandwich and a toothbrush in a brown paper bag. She need those things in jail. The teachers had promised Reverend Reese they marched to the courthouse that afternoon, but Joyce grew worried. Would Too Sweet be coming home that night? Joyce grabbed her and held her tight. Should I put the pin in it now?
Put the pin? What you talking
I
about?
said I would do, it's a long book.
Oh.
I mean, y'all,
okay.
do villagers want more, or do we want to get into, it's a pretty long.
It's too.
It's a long book.
It's
doable, but it's longer. So I want more, or we can put a pin in it and encourage everybody to go out and get this book to hear the rest of it. I think we'll do that. I think there's a conversation that we can have around this, just right here and right now from what we know. And some of us know the outcome of this story already, but we know they're saying go.
Yeah, then we see how you handle that.
I have to do what my villagers want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Definitely. Okay. Just want to make sure. All right. So later that day, Reverend Reese waited by the steps of the school with his list of names. Classes had ended, teachers weren't lined up. They changed their minds. Had they decided not to march, Reverend Reese would blame them if they had. All week, he'd seen people get arrested for trying to register to vote. Sheriff Clark herded them into a block with rope like they were cattle. I'm from Alabama too. He locked them in jail. Even Dr. King was beaten and bruised. What could happen to somebody like Dr. King? Would the teachers be brave enough? The wind rustled Reverend Reese's list of names, but he kept his eye on the school doors. He had faith in the teachers. They'd given him their work. They signed the list, but he was standing alone. And sometimes when you take that leap, you feel like you are standing alone, and you might literally be standing alone. I've definitely experienced it, and I know you have too. But all right. Suddenly the doors burst. One teacher walked out, then held two brushes in the air, ready to go to jail for freedom. Soon 104 teachers strutted down the steps, their toothbrushes gleaming like swords in the Selma sun. The teachers are gonna march, kids shouted, rousing people from the neighborhood. Reverend Reese called Coach Huggins to the front of the line. Coach was strong and fearless. He taught weightlifting to the football team and was in great shape. Reverend Reese wanted him close by in case there was trouble. Whenever anyone marched, there was bound to be trouble. Could you believe it? Grown-ups murmured, rushing from their homes. The teachers are going to march. Reverend Reese told the kids to wait at Brown Chapel, but Joyce paced nervously along the sidewalk, searching for Too Sweet. Would her mother be safe? If Too Sweet went to jail, they'd be anything but free. If Too Sweet got fired from her job, they'd be asking for handouts, food, clothing, everything. We're going to keep walking. We have reached the courthouse. Reverend Reese and the teachers. 2 by 2, they started marching. The Reverend walked in front, his hands clenched in his trench coat pockets. Coach Huggins, strong. Too Sweet, poised and defiant. Young and old, clutching paper filled with sandwiches for jail. The teachers didn't breathe a word. They didn't smile or sing freedom songs, but you could hear the courage in their leather shoes churning up the red dirt road and see the bravery behind their Sunday brooches catching the light of the sun. When the teachers reached the white section of town, red dirt changed to pavement. Crowds gathered like storm clouds. Shopkeepers hurried out of their stores. They glared at the teachers, trying to rattle their courage. What is it they want? They wondered. The teachers kept marching. What they wanted was what everyone had, the right to vote. As they turned onto Alabama Avenue, the teachers spotted the 13 steps of green marble leading up to the courthouse. Sheriff Clark and his deputy stood at the top of those steps. While the sheriff saw so many teachers marching toward him, his eyes filled with rage. "We are here to register," Reverend Reese announced. "You can't make a plaything out of the corridors of this courthouse," the sheriff boomed. "You think you can make it a Disneyland?" "We have a right to be here," the Reverend insisted. "I will give you 1 minute to clear the steps," Clark roared, "or I'll have you all arrested." The teachers folded their arms. Some gripped their paper bags tighter, but they refused to move. 10 seconds, yelled the sheriff. Domestic terror. Reverend Reese and the teachers stood at the courthouse steps as still as the Statue of Liberty. Up now. Sheriff Clark and his deputy reached for their billy clubs. The sheriff jabbed Coach Huggins in the stomach, then Reverend Reese. The teachers fell down the steps like dominoes. Reverend Reese led the teachers back up again. Sheriff Clark grew so angry that he shoved the teachers down the steps even harder the second time. The superintendent rushed out of the courthouse. He stared at the teachers. He could fire each and every one of them. Reverend Reese, Coach Huggins, Too Sweet. The teachers stared right back at him. They looked in the angry eyes of Sheriff Clark. "Go ahead," Reverend Reese kept thinking. "Arrest us. This wasn't Disneyland. This was real life, first-class citizens. That's what they were, nothing less. The Constitution guaranteed it. They stepped out for their right to vote, ready to be handcuffed, ready to lose their jobs for that right. But if the superintendent fired every teacher lined up at the courthouse, who would teach the students? He would have to shut down the schools. Then he would be out of the job. Reverend Reese knew it. So did Sheriff Clark. The sheriff put his billy club. The handcuffs stayed clasped to his waist. Reverend Reese and his triumphant idea had gained a glorious victory. Although the teachers didn't register to vote that day, the sheriff had the good sense not to arrest them, and the superintendent had the good sense not to fire them. With their heads held high, the teachers walked proudly to Brown Chapel. The church thundered with sounds of young voices singing freedom songs. The teachers are coming back, somebody shouted. Everyone stood and sang louder. Joyce couldn't see the teachers, but she cheered anyway for Reverend Reese for Too Sweet. Too Sweet had to be there. Did you see my teacher marching kids gushed across wooden pews? As soon as the singing stopped, Joyce spoke out for Too Sweet. When she found her, Joyce ran and hugged her mother and wouldn't let go. When Dr. King came back to preach that night, he praised Reverend Reese and the teachers for making civil rights history. No group of leaders had risked their jobs before by marching. We were like giants, Reverend Reese said with a smile. Great giants. Okay, we're almost done. Because Reese and the teachers marched, other groups started marching for their right to vote. Beauticians and barbers marched. Then undertakers marched. Because Reverend Reese and the teachers marched, they became heroes. It didn't matter that the kids were too young to vote. They intended to march for their teachers and their parents' right to vote. The students left after the roll call. The teachers turned their backs to get out the window. I'm going to get your civil rights, they promised their new heroes. They marched to the courthouse with determination in their eyes and ankle socks and sneakers on their feet. Joyce marched too, for her mother Too Sweet. The Selma marchers filled the jails by the thousands. Americans noticed. They wondered why respectable citizens in suits and dresses and school kids carrying were jailed. The President of the United States noticed. He pushed for a new voting rights law. That summer of 1965, the Voting Rights Act passed. It made certain that nobody had to take a test to vote. On one August morning, Reverend Reese, Too Sweet, and other teachers walked down Alabama Avenue. They climbed the steps of the federal building across the courthouse. Inside, there were no voting tests, no billy clubs, no alleys marked with rope. All the teachers had to do was sign their names and they were registered to vote. The first thing they did was Sheriff Clark out of office. Boom. All right, Virtual Village family. And they include Reverend Reese and Joyce Parrish O'Neal. There's information about them. And there is also a timeline. There's an illustrator's note, and there is a timeline of the voting rights movement in Selma, Alabama, and other key dates. So we always recommend that the books you hear, that you add them to your children, your grandchildren, your church, your mosque, your school. So get these books in there. And then have the conversation, because Rodney and I are going to have a conversation. And we're having with you guys, so we want you to jump in. We want you to jump in. And thank you, Miss Tiffany. Thank you. These stories get to me because I think about the fact that this is recent history, and thank you, Ms. Marva, that this is recent history. And I think about what our community has gone through, and the fact that we are still here, and the way sometimes when we see that things may not be going perfectly in our communities, and the fuss that people make about that, there's something we make about that that I think we forget to put things in perspective of all that this community has had to endure and what these things will do to the psyche of a group of people having to deal with that. I think about, and Rodney, jump in at any moment, but I think about also, I know there are people in my circle and people who this work and read and are involved in this, who will say that these marches were not necessarily the right thing to do. And people who talk about, well, and here's my take on marching for the right to vote. First of all, we have the gift of hindsight here, all right? And our job with every generation that comes after another generation is to look behind us and do assessments of what worked, what did not work, what can we apply now, what do we need to change, what do we need to totally discard, where did they bring us, where do we need to go? So I always have some grace because I think about the fact there was no blueprint, and I never lived during a time where that was happening. I never lived during that. Okay. So I have to think about that as I make historic critiques or whatever. Also, as far as the right to vote is concerned, people wanted to be able to vote people out, to strategically get together and be engaged in politics in a way where they have a say in their community. Not just being able to go and say, I filled out a ballot and I put on a sticker and my ancestors' wildest dreams. This was about people saying, I'm a taxpayer, I'm a citizen, and I deserve to have a say in how things go in my community. It is the job of the future generations to say, well, if that only got us so far, if anybody even feels it's short-sighted or anything like that, it got to a certain point, and it is for us to build. A phrase that I use all the time is we move now, because some of the things we look in history and we might be like, I don't necessarily agree with all that they did, but they were living in it, okay? So we plan 2050 and beyond. That's how you should be organizing for 2050 and beyond, looking back at what came before us and looking at where we are going and implementing plans in that way. But the bravery in the midst of domestic terrorism and uncharted territories, the bravery cannot be denied, because not one of us not anybody who I know was alive and of it. Well, no, nobody in my age range was alive during a time where people literally could just knock you upside your head in mass and nothing would happen. Nobody lived during. I did not experience that, and I don't know anybody my age who has gone through that. And so when you think about judging, critiquing history, you have to put yourself in people's shoes during that time. And a lot of the critics right now, and I'm speaking to people who critique people who went through history without any level of consideration of what it was like during that time. I'm like, y'all don't be making ruckus at your job. They're doing foul stuff at your job, and you want to speak up about that. So to be hard on people who every day when they stepped outside, they could get bombed like that, we just got to think about that. We definitely do. Miss Marvin said, we're currently making history, and generations after us will read what exactly. And as we make this history, though, we have the gift of, there was a Brother Malcolm, there was the Teachers March, there was the Sister Fannie Lou Hamer, there was the Schomburg, there were these people, and being well versed on their contributions and what they did and what we may feel they didn't do. Now I'm passing it over to Ray. How you doing, Ray? So good to see you, fam. So good to see you here. I hope you are doing well and your little ladies. But I'm passing it to my co-host now. I feel like I hogged it up, but y'all know I get in my feelings about this stuff.
Look, I think you need to keep going. Sometimes you learn when the person got that spirit going and it's going, you just got to be quiet and let it roll. So I'm just being quiet and letting you roll. We started off wondering like, well, what might we talk about with the virtual village tonight, right? And then we said we're gonna do a little bit of a wellness check. Then we said, okay, maybe we'll read this book or that book. And the next thing you know, the spirit hitting you rolling. So, you need to keep right on rolling. You saying a word.
But I love the perspective that you bring to these conversations as well. And again, I say variety is the spice of life. You have wonderful things. So we've had Miss Starr's perspective, but I would like to hear what you got to say, because you bring it all the time, and you have a wealth of history, and I like that you come and you make it for all of us who are in the Hampton Roads area, because I'm interested in our history all around. But for those of us who are here, Ronnie brings it. He'll be like, yeah, so on Church Street.
But first of all, that was a great story. It was. I thought it was a great book. You read it exceptionally well. You took me back to the beginning of the Let's Get Clever virtual read-in, right? This is how it started in March, picking up a book, reading nonstop, bringing in the family, talking about these issues, connected it to history, put it in context. So to me, you took me back to day one. So thank you for that. The other piece that many pieces to this that we could talk about forever, but I appreciated the way that you gave emphasis and that the author gave emphasis to the literal life and death decisions that folks were making. And, we often read and hear about the students and what they did. I appreciate that you brought that back to the teachers and who were adults, who had families, and the decisions that they made as chronicled in this book. So that hit me. The other thing that hit me was, even as you were talking about maybe some folks that are being critical, I'm not sure of all of that circle that you're describing, but isn't that what we just been doing? Aren't we in the midst of George Floyd? Aren't we in the midst of Breonna Taylor? Aren't we in the midst of Black Lives Matter plazas all over the country? So it is interesting how, in one sense, we say we may critique what somebody else did while we live as beneficiaries of the very thing that they did. So I want you to think about that for a moment. So we are critiquing, at least some are, decisions that people made that afforded us to have the benefits that we have today. And I think sometimes it is easy to critique what somebody did yesterday to try to distract from what we are not doing today. So you talked about passing the baton. You talked about standing on somebody else's shoulder. Whereas, if you're in the sports world, you get to the Super Bowl, but sometimes it's hard to get back. So I think we have to find ways, as you said, of drawing upon that experience and strength and look in the mirror and decide, what we're going to stand up for today. Where are we? So I don't have a problem with marches. I think that there's, I've talked about this before. Things have to be put in context. So you talked about the Voting Rights Act and gaining the right to vote. Yes, as you mentioned, there was the ability to have impact on what was going on around folks. There was the fact that people were paying taxes and they had the right to a say-so in their decision making. It's also a social emotional piece to it as well. Psychological. The whole Jim Crow, the domestic terrorism, all that was designed and intended to try to have us view ourselves as inferior and second class and view others as superior. So there's a psychological barrier. There was a spiritual warfare. There were things that King and so many others, Fannie Lou Hamer, were dealing with on a psycho-spiritual level to try to break those psychological bondages that we were dealing with, such that you even described in the book, there were some people who were unwilling and unable to take the stand and then try to, you said it's a family show, mess it up for everybody else. So I just think it's a great book. I think it's a great family book. You and I had talked about, doing some things in a virtual village during the Kwanzaa season. This is the time where we can bring on some of our elders who lived it. And
That's all I want to do. That's all I want to do. I want to make the documentary. Like, I want to make a documentary about that, surviving domestic terrorism. But I'm with you, and we definitely have the ability to. We've discussed this, and COVID makes us the pandemic makes us stop and realize the resources that we have that we may not have been paying attention to get to people and get information out there. So you're absolutely right, and we have some exciting things coming. And these conversations, like you said, it is reminiscent of when we first began. And I have an announcement. I have a few announcements before we go. I have something I want to talk about that Dr. Quarles.
So you had me on the road and you said time to go. I had to look up, see what time it was.
Oh, no, we're not getting ready to go just yet. I said before we go, because we still got to get a moment in history and all of that stuff. So, but I'm just throwing it in. We move and we letting the spirit of the night move us, right? So I just wanted to share with everybody, and I'll be putting it up. We changed our mission statement actually because of the work that we do and the focus. Like when you talked about the social emotional work of this and the psychology behind it, because when you think about people living during the Jim Crow era, and there are people, I think history should be critiqued. If you don't critique history, then you're foolish. It should be critiqued, but I think it should be critiqued with an understanding and with respect of the time. And I'm not talking about for the villains, but I'm talking about for the people who were terrorized, having an understanding of all of the emotional things that you're talking about and the real life things that they had to deal with as we critique decisions that people made, whether we feel they were the right or best decisions or not. But that social emotional piece of living during a time where if you are walking down the street, if you are a man, you have the choice of, well, if I don't move over, if I get pulled over by this cop and he starts calling me boy and telling me to get out and do this and do that, if I make, how do I respond to this? Because there are repercussions. If I end up dead, if it's just me, kill me. But if I end up dead, I got a wife and 3 children here. And where does that leave them? And the things that, people would be confronted with and have to think about during that time, and that they were grossly outnumbered as well. But we changed our mission statement to reflect that aspect of the work that we do here. So our new mission statement that I'm sharing with the Virtual Village family for the first time is Clever Communities in Action focuses on the promotion and placement of culturally affirming literature in order to improve literacy rates, build community, and heal racial traumas inflicted by systemic racism within the African American community. Because it's more than just the literacy work. It is more, the literacy work is important, and literacy is liberation. But our work, these conversations are entrenched. The affirmation that Shania does, the moment in history that Jaimir delivers, the quote that Makai does, and well before the Virtual Village community started, the work with bringing in Black authors. There's the mission.
I got to get bigger than that.
Yes, the work with bringing in Black authors and being in spaces where authors are talking about their intentionality of writing for Black children, to empower Black children, for Black children to be seen, and where Black children are coming in saying, in the beginning, I don't like my brown skin, I don't like my hair, and being comfortable to admit that to a group of people who envelop them, who affirm them, who tell them how perfect they are, how brilliant they are, and they walk away and their parents walk away with a sense of pride, with a sense of self-affirmation and a sense of community. That is the work, that is the holistic point, that is the holisticness of this work that we are doing here. So, I felt that we said we need to make sure that the mission statement encompasses that, because it did not encompass that. I didn't read the old one, but it did not fully encompass all of that. So that part is very important, and that part is unique. And that is the part that we want the Virtual Village family and all the family who comes here virtually and in person to understand that that's the work that we're doing. That's what this is, a safe space. This is a space for us to have these conversations that are important for our community. And this is the space, if you have a child who is struggling with their identity, struggling with their beautiful wide nose, with their beautiful thick lips and chocolate skin or mocha skin and, tightly coiled, kinky hair, whatever it may be, all of those beautiful things are just where they fit in this world, or things that they have dealt with that they don't understand. This is the place, this is the space. And we got a book for you. And we'll have a book for you to tie it all in. So, that is very important. So I will be putting something, well, I won't be putting it up, but something will go up with our new mission statement for you guys to see that. And I hope that it gives you all a sense of pride, because this is Clever Communities in Action, and the Virtual Village is a part of that. So a community encompasses people, and a village encompasses people. So when that mission statement goes up, I hope that you guys feel proud about that as well, because this is our space. Ray, Sharice, Miss Tiffany, Miss Marva, Miss Amanda, Shania, Keisha, why am I forgetting names? Crystal, just everybody, all of our villagers, you all make this, be the village that it is. So that mission statement is for you. It's for you, and it's for your children, and it's for everybody who can benefit from that and see the value in it. And if you don't understand it, then it's not for you. Everything's not for everybody.
If you don't understand it, come here and learn something.
That too, if you want to learn, if you want to come and learn, if you want to come and learn, then yes, that part. Let's see, Ray said, awesome evolution of the mission statement. Thank you, appreciate that. And Miss Tiffany is giving us the 5s on the black hand side. And Miss Sharice, yes, villagers, we are active villagers. So I guess at this point, we will go into our moment of history, which is going to spark.
No, it's not.
Rodney said it's not. Rodney said it's not going to spark another conversation. He's running time. But we are. Y'all check out this moment in history, because it flows right along. It comes after, but it's in the same correct. Oh, it's another type of energy, right? It's another energy, and just so much to talk about, but the time. So don't y'all go anywhere. Jameer is about to hit us with this moment in history.
Greetings, virtual villagers. I am Jameer. I'm here to bring you today's moment in history. Fred Hampton was a Black American activist and revolutionary. He came to prominence in Chicago as chairman of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party and deputy chairman of the National Black Panther Party due to his organizing skills, outstanding speaking ability, and personal charisma. He organized weekly rallies, worked with the People's Clinic, taught political education classes every morning at 6 a.m., and launched a project for community supervision of the police. Hampton was also instrumental in the Black Panther Party's free breakfast program. He founded the Rainbow Coalition, a prominent multicultural political organization that initially included the Black Panthers, Young Patriots, and the Young Lords, an alliance among major Chicago street gangs to help them end infighting and work for social changes. Hampton emphasized that racial and ethnic conflict among gangs would only keep its members entrenched in poverty. His talent as a political organizer was described as remarkable. In 1968, Hampton was on the verge of creating a merger between the Black Panther Party and a South Side street gang with thousands of members, which would have doubled the size of the National Black Panther Party. In 1967, Hampton was identified by the Federal Bureau of Investigations as a radical threat. The FBI tried to shut down his activities in Chicago by sending false information between black progressive groups and placing a counterintelligence operation in the local Panthers. In December 1969, Hampton was shot and killed in his bed during an early morning raid at his Chicago apartment by a tactical unit of the Cook County State's Attorney's Office with the Chicago Police Department and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. During the raid, Panther Mark Clark was also killed, and several others were seriously wounded. Fred Hampton was only 21 years old.
Greetings, virtual villagers. I'm Asia, and I am back for today's book recommendation. Jameer told you about the dynamic revolutionary chairman, Fred Hampton, which is why we recommend Little Freddie and the 10 Points by Serader Chapman. In this book, Little Freddie learns about the Black Panther Party and their 10-point program. These fundamental ideals are explained in a way that is easy to read, thought-provoking, and interesting. This will serve as a great introductory piece for parents that want to teach their children what the Black Panther Party stands for and how they have shaped our communities today. You definitely want to add this one to your home library. You can purchase this book at your local Black-owned bookstore or visit smile.amazon.com. And at Clever Communities in Action, as your charity, and Amazon will donate a percentage of the price of your purchases at no cost to you.
All right. So, of course, Jameer always brings it with those moments in history. And you guys, we are short on time. So we don't have time to go into the mighty Fred Hampton, a hero of mine, as well as, and as it was mentioned in Jameer's piece, that also Brother Mark Clark was killed as well. And one of our villagers, actually, Miss Bridget Brown Jackson, who you guys have seen frequently, Mark Clark was her uncle. So these things are real life people. And I see, her family members, when they post about this and talk about this. I've seen her aunts post pictures of Mark Clark, the other Panther who was killed at that time, in his casket. I've seen them, talk about it and the pain that they still feel 50 years later. So this was real life. This was real, again, domestic terrorism for people fighting for us to be able to be citizens, for us to be able to live with dignity, to be able to forge our own lives in ways that to be able to dictate what happens for us in our lives. And people really risk their lives. And all that Fred Hampton did, that was a snippet of it. And again, he died at the young age of, is it 20 or 21? A baby. We know right now that is a baby. And he made such an impact, and they killed him. And his woman was pregnant, lying next to him, pregnant, And so the child was born without his father alive. And imagine the stress that had to be on. And I forget her name. Oh my gosh, I know her name. But with the stress that it had to be on her and on her womb and just things that get transferred as a result of being a community living through that. And of course, yes, Asia always comes through with the book recommendation with her beautiful self. And so we appreciate our young people. And Asia reminds you guys to register Clever Communities in Action, to go to smile.amazon.com and register Clever Communities in Action as your charity of choice. And anytime the holidays are coming, I know you guys are going to be doing things on Amazon. A way that you can support your village is by simply, again, smile.amazon.com. You can do it you can go through the web, or you can do it on the app, and register Clever Communities in Action as your charity. And every time you make a purchase, you pay nothing, but they will take a small percentage of what you purchase and donate it towards us. It's not a big percentage, but it's something. And the more people do it, the more impact that it has. So that is something really easy that you can do. I also want to put this out there. I'm going to drop a link in the comment section when we get off of here. And I will also try to see if it can be dropped on the Clever Communities in Action Facebook page. If it's that kind of link, I'm not sure. But Dr. Quarles, one of our faithful villagers, sent me something about a scholarship. It's coming from Congresswoman Elaine Luria. So this is for Virginia residents. If you are anybody, I'm not sure if it has to be a young person or it's anyone who is contemplating attending a community college here in Virginia. There is a scholarship available, and this is via the 200 plus men who are putting this information out there. So thank you, Dr. Quarles. I will drop that information. It's been a wonderful night. This is the end of our second season, our fall season, but we will have some things popping up and we will come back. We have not set a date yet for when we are coming back, but we will be back. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Please make sure that you share, and the more people who know about this, the more that it helps us to be able to keep going. And also, please make sure we are going to drop another survey. We are going to drop another survey. So we want all of you guys to fill out that survey for us and give us that honest feedback, okay? We definitely appreciate that. So Rodney, I feel like, again, I've been running my trap, but, take us out, Reverend Jordan. Like only you can.
Well, since you say it, Reverend Jordan, and there's the saying that man doesn't live by bread alone. As you were speaking or describing, Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers' efforts to feed every child and feed families, that work still holds true today. School systems, a lot of organizations now that do that can thank Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers for having that vision a long, long time ago. And then you fed us with intellectual bread as well tonight with the story that you read. So to the extent that Fred Hampton is your hero and he was involved in community organizing, and which included feeding the people, you and Clever Communities in Action and the work that you're doing is continuing to feed us now. So I would just say to the virtual village, keep eating, but also do like Ms. Starr said, go ahead and get involved with the Smile effort and the Amazon effort, and go to the website and to the social media and drop a donation so that the feeding can continue. So I will leave it at that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Rodney, and I appreciate all of our virtual village family. We do have one more night tomorrow with our teachers coming on to do the foundational literacy lesson. And then, like I said, we are on hiatus, but we will be popping up. We will be running back these shows, so make sure you share them. And just because, everybody who's been tuning in live, you still can share these with people who can go and watch it. Again, that's the beauty of, things being on the internet. It's timeless. So thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been wonderful. You guys are the best villagers ever. And just remember, as we think about history, let's feel it and let's understand and let it encapsulate us and take in the emotional components of that and the realities. And it gives us a lot to be proud of. And it gives us a lot of responsibility. And it also gives us context when anybody is trying to say detrimental things, negative things about the Black community without having full context of the terrorism, the struggles, the being locked out of situations and all kinds of things that our community went through. This, knowing our history, gives us the context to feel good about ourselves and to counter anybody who tries to say disparaging things about us, even if it's from within our own community, but definitely outside of the community. And for us also to understand the work and the responsibility that we have moving forward. So y'all have a great evening. Much love. See y'all. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
Went through and conquered.
Look, mommy, community in action. What on my little sound that? Look, daddy, there's a book for me too. But on my little sound that. Creative, affirming, and culture for me too. Look, granny, a little sound that. Look, granny, a little sound that. Look, granny, a little sound that. Learning and exploring my history, you see. Look, mommy, a little sound that. We confident, we practice, and develop influency. Look, daddy, a little sound that. Families, they bonding, they representing me. Look, granny, a little sound that. Look, I'm here, a little sound that. Nice, I see a little sound of that.
So reliable, culturally relevant. Sit back and listen listen to the wisdom while we represent. So reliable, culturally relevant. Readers to leaders, they hold it down where they haven't sit. Core reliable, culturally relevant. Sit back and listen to the wisdom while you represent. So reliable, culturally relevant. Readers to leaders, they hold it down, yeah, they haven't sit.
Look, mommy, give me the read in action. Well, on my little sound of that. Look, daddy, there's a book for me too. Well, on my little sound of that. Creative, affirming culture for me too. Look, Brandy, a little sound of that.